Linda Wooten once said, "Being a mom is about having strengths you didn't know you had and about fears you didn't know existed." Hi, my name is Ashley Saltz, and today I want to share with you a personal story about the day that I became a mom and the day that I gave birth to my daughter, Parker Ray. I hope that in sharing this story, I can teach you a little lesson about fear and how sometimes it's just a mindset. I feel qualified to give this speech to you because I did have a baby and I've been a mother for 2 years now. So I'm going to start with taking you clear back 2 years ago to the morning we drove up to the hospital. Throughout the whole 9-month journey, you always have little fears that pop into your head, but none of them seem very realistic. And so we lived about 2 hours from the hospital, and I was scheduled for a C-section because my daughter was breech, meaning that she hadn't flipped and been put in the right position. So we were driving up to the hospital, just kind of listening to some music, watching the scenery in South Dakota, which is very vibrant and beautiful, buffalo roaming in the fields. So we're driving up to Rapid City, which is more of a city. And as we get closer and we're inching into town, I start hearing more traffic and just city life. And all of a sudden, I just remember this big overwhelming, almost weight on my shoulders, oh my gosh, we're not just driving to Rapid City for an appointment. We're not just driving to Rapid City to go grocery shopping. We're driving to Rapid City to have a baby, and the next time that we get on this road, we'll have this little baby. So we get into the hospital, we get checked in, they take us back to our room, and that's when they start getting me prepped. And so I've had several surgeries before, so I'm pretty used to the hospital environment because I also work there. I'm used to, nurses coming in and talking to you and touching you and putting IVs, and all of that was pretty normal. But just the talk of after the C-section, your baby will go here, you'll have this doctor, she'll have this doctor. And I just remember during the prepping, it all kind of just seemed like everyone else was moving and I was just sitting still. And at this point is when I kind of really started to fear, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be a mom. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be responsible for this tiny little baby. And it just seemed so surreal. Everything was getting very sterile and clean. My husband had to put on clean scrubs to be able to go into the OR. And it was just crazy. So they finally get done prepping me and they take me into the OR, and they had to put an epidural in my back for the C-section, which for me was the hardest part because they make me so nervous. And I just remember feeling so out of control because I didn't want a C-section and I ended up having to have one. I felt like I'd lost my sense of control, and this big overwhelming sense of fear just came if I can't control this, if I'm afraid of this, how can I be a mom? I won't be any good at a mom. I can't take care of a baby. I can't even control my feelings. I can't even relax enough for them to put this needle in me to have this baby. And it was so much. So then I just remember my doctor coming over and her saying, just take a deep breath. It's all gonna be totally irrelevant in the next 10 minutes. Just take a deep breath. And at that point, I felt so much calmer and everything started to slow down. And I really got to see being in the OR and the drapes and the staff. And I finally felt present in the middle of it all. And I finally kind of felt okay, I think that I can do this. So after they went ahead and brought my husband in and they started the procedure, I remember Dr. Dean lifting up Parker and she was like, so is it a boy or is it a girl? And I was so speechless because I was just so excited and so overwhelmed with love, and this that weight that had been there was just lifted. And it was every care in the world, every fear that I had totally just vanished. And I just remember oh my gosh, we did it. And so they kind of wrapped her in a blanket and they just brought her over and just laid her on my chest. And then again, the whole world just stopped. But this time it wasn't out of fear. It wasn't because I was scared. It was because I was so happy. I was so happy. So then they asked us if we named her, and Parker Ray, which is the name that popped up, and I said, I think her name is Parker Ray. And it was the most surreal feeling. So this is actually that moment there when they placed her on my chest. You can see this is my husband Brody and me, and then that's Parker. And it was just, that's why it's in a frame, is because it was like the moment that I fell in love with her. I think you have so much fear sometimes as a mom is because you're responsible for this tiny little being. Like, their whole world is dependent on you. And when they're only this big, doesn't even fill this little onesie, that's a lot. That's a lot of weight. But soon time flies by, and then they're just huge and they're just big. Being a mom is basically just getting this new sense of love that you can't feel in any other way. And it's kind of about finding strength in the unknown, in the uncertainty, because you never know when your kid is gonna try and climb a tree and fall down, or you can't control, you can't wrap them in a bubble. So just finding strength in the fact that you love them so much and that you would do anything for them, and just knowing that there is strength in that, and just trusting the whole process. Trusting that whether you are C-section or a regular vaginal birth or even adopting, just trusting that whole process and your whole instincts, and knowing that it does no good to be afraid and fearful, because you're going to miss out on so much. And just like that, she taught me the meaning of unconditional love.